Alright, how we all doing? Black Lives Matter, justice for George Floyd. You see I'm ranking all black all week. This video is brought to you by Austin Sweat. I don't know if we've ever watched one of his videos before. But I thought that this one, out of all of them, would be pretty interesting. It's the 10 greatest NBA players whose career got ended early by injuries. So I better see Brandon Roy on here. Derrick Rose will probably be number 1 on my list. Anyways, we're going to get this started. We'll see what he has to say. All right, let's get it.
Injuries happen all the time in the game of basketball, and that's just something players have to deal with. But nothing's worse than seeing the same player with such high potential go down with an injury year after year. Except there might be one thing worse, when that player is forced to retire because their bodies have worn down so much. So today we're looking at 10 of the best players.
D-Rose wasn't forced to retire, but the injury
Most of these players are considered all-time greats, but it's still tough to imagine just how good these players' careers could have been. Let's get started with number 10, Tracy Mcgrady. There's no doubt that Tracy Mcgrady is a top 5 shooting guard all time. He never made it out of the first round, besides with the Spurs, which doesn't count. But he did average 32 points a game one season. Tracy had it all. He could shoot, defend, drive in for layups, rebound, assist, and score in the playoffs.
There's a lot of really
good shooting guards, hit clutch shots. But in the 2005 and 6 season, McGrady's injuries would begin. That season, he only played 47 games due to back spasms, and even had to be carried off on a stretcher at one point because it got so bad. In 2006, he'd missed more games because of back spasms, and in 2008, when the playoffs arrived, Tracy had to get pain-killing injections and fluid drained from his shoulder and knee just so he could play in the games. And for the rest of his career, these nagging injuries only got worse. They'd require surgery and eventually led to Tracy McGrady retiring officially at 34 years old. He went from averaging 21 points a game through his first 5 seasons to only averaging 8 points a game for his last 5. There's no telling how much McGrady's injuries actually affected him throughout his time in the playoffs, because he still averaged nearly 30 points a game for his main run in the playoffs. So with injuries or not, I don't think they really affected the fact that Tracy never made it out of the first round. But either way, it's safe to say that Tracy McGrady's career was largely affected and shortened by all of these injuries.
Definitely.
Number 9. Yao Ming.
Unfortunate.
Yao Ming's injury started early in his career. Before joining the NBA, Yao Ming played 4 seasons in the CBA, but in his second season, he broke his foot for the second time in his career. He said this decreased his vertical by 4 to 6 inches. Despite the criticism and doubt from pretty much everybody, Yao would become a star in the NBA. He'd start in the All-Star game for 8 out of his 9 seasons in the NBA, and at one point averaged 25 points a game. For his first 3 seasons in the NBA, Yao Ming played every game except
the
next year in 2005 and 6 is when his injuries would begin. He missed 21 games that season due to a big toe injury and would break his knee the next season and miss 32 games. Up until breaking his knee that season, he was averaging 27 points and 10 rebounds a game and was an MVP candidate. In 2007, Yao would miss 27 more games due to a stress fracture in his left foot, and it turns out that would be the beginning of the end, because Yao would continue to fracture that same foot 2 more times and lead to him eventually retiring. Between the injuries to Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady, we really never got to see just how good the Rockets could have been. But as for Yao, he averaged 19 points and 9 rebounds a game for his short 9-year NBA career. It's crazy to think just how good he could have been if it wasn't for breaking his foot twice before he ever made it to the NBA and losing up to 6 inches off his vertical. Shaq even said that if it wasn't for all those injuries, he believed Yao Ming could have been a top 5 center all time. Number 8. Bill Walton. Bill Walton in 1971 led UCLA to a 30-0 record by an average win margin of 30 points. And it didn't stop there, because he led them to a 30-0 record again the next season. And they would win 88 straight before their streak was broken. So this made him the National College Player of the Year 3 years in a row before he'd get taken with the first overall pick by the Portland Trailblazers in 1974. And he was supposed to be the savior of the Portland franchise. In his first 3 seasons, he lived up to that hype because he'd lead the league in rebounds and block shots, made the All-Star team, and eventually helped them win an NBA championship and won the Finals MVP. Up until that point, Bill was averaging about 16 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks a game. But he'd only play 151 out of 246 games because of injury. Actually, he would only play more than 67 games once in his career, in his second to last season in the NBA. But Walton would go on to win league MVP, miss 2 entire seasons because of an injured foot, and play only 14 games in one season. Battling through injuries, his stats would keep declining until he was eventually traded
He
to the
missed
Boston
2 years.
Celtics to be their sixth man,
He
where
missed
he
2
won
whole
Sixth Man of the
years
Year and won another
for
NBA
injury.
championship with Larry
And
Bird,
Yao Ming
Robert
averages for
Parrish,
like
and Kevin
12 times.
McHale. The next season, he'd only played 10 games and retired from the NBA after too many injuries. The beginning of Bill Walton's NBA career and his time in college made it seem like he was on a path to become one of the greatest centers the NBA has ever
Might have
seen.
been.
But the
Might have
injuries
been.
that kept adding up ruined his chances at that.
A lot
He
of
went from being a
injuries.
league MVP and Finals MVP
I'm
to
learning a
only
lot.
averaging
I
7
didn't
points a
know-
game
I
when he
didn't
won
know
the
that
Sixth
about
Man of
Yao
the Year
Ming or
award.
Bill Walton,
Now we
to
can
be
only
honest.
imagine just how good Bill Walton would have been if it wasn't for
I
all
knew
those
about
injuries.
T-Max injuries,
Number
but I didn't know
7,
he only
Greg
averaged 8
Oden.
points his last 4
Everyone
games.
knows Greg Oden, the man picked before Kevin Durant. The man that was picked first overall and only played 105 games in the NBA. Greg Oden was supposed to be the next great center in the NBA. A man Steve Kerr described as a once-in-a-decade player. He made it to the 2007 NCAA championship and averaged 16 points and 10 rebounds a game in his only season at college. Before ever playing in an NBA game, the injuries started. From that point on, nearly every time he stepped on an NBA court, he got injured. He had all the potential in the world to become the next great NBA player, but his body just wasn't cut out for it.
Nope.
After 3 microsurgeries on his left knee, Greg Oden would eventually retire from the NBA at only 26 years old. It's crazy to think that
Jeez.
today Greg is only 29, and now we would just be seeing his true potential if it wasn't for all of his injuries.
That's crazy.
Number 6,
That's crazy.
Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy was another guy that had all the potential to be one of the best shooting guards in NBA history. He was a Rookie of the Year and quickly became one of the best shooting guards in the league by averaging 22 points a game one season, and he was a 3-time All-Star. Kobe Bryant even said that Brandon Roy was the hardest player to guard in the Western Conference and that he had no weaknesses in his game. He finished 9th in MVP voting and made the All-Second Team one time. Brandon was getting better every year, but in 2008 his knees were bothering him, so he had a piece of cartilage removed. A mistake that cost him in the long run. In 2010 he tore his meniscus, and later that year his knees really started to bother him due to a lack of cartilage.
Damn.
So he had surgery on both of his knees. But since both knees wore down so much, he was forced to retire in 2011 after only 5 seasons in the NBA.
That's
And
crazy.
he tried to make a comeback, but he got re-injured in preseason. So after basically only 5 seasons in the NBA, Brandon Roy was forced to retire
He
for
got
good. He
re-injured
was
in
only
preseason.
just getting started when his knees
That's
started to
unfortunate,
wear down.
man.
Right now he's 33 years old, and now we would be watching him play some of the best of his career if it wasn't for his knees wearing down so quickly.
Yeah.
So we can only wonder how good he would have gotten. Number 5, Pete Maravich. Even though
why
Pete
you gotta
played
say
in the
that money.
70s, he's still one of the most underrated players and one of the best players to be forced to retire because of injuries. Maravich is the all-time NCAA leading scorer, even though he only played 3 seasons in college. It's a record that'll most likely never be broken because he averaged 44 points a game for all 3 of his seasons at LSU.
Holy
If anyone now is
shit.
going to break this record, they'd have to go for 4 seasons and average 33 points a game every season, which would likely never happen because someone that good wouldn't stay for all 4 years. But he was the 3rd
Damn.
overall pick and averaged about 25 points a game for his first 6 seasons in the NBA, then have a monster season where he averaged 31 points a game in 1976 and
points.
77. And that included a game where he scored
A
68
game for
points.
3
But the
years.
next season is when his injuries would start. He would miss
Jesus.
32 games because of injuries in both knees and missed 33 the next season. He made the
Wasn't
All-Star
his dad
game
the
5
coach of the
times in
team or
his
some
career.
shit?
But for Pete Maravich's next and final season in the NBA,
I'm pretty
he'd
sure his
only
dad
play
was the coach of the
43
team.
games. And he was always known for his long-range shots, but the NBA didn't put the 3-point line in until his last season where he went 10 for 15. After only 11 seasons in the NBA, Pete knew his knees were only going to get worse, so he
Damn, no
retired with
three-point
a
line
career
tough.
average of 24 points a game. He retired at 33
It's
years
weird
old.
imagining
Now we can
the
only
NBA
wonder
without
how
the
many points he would
3-point
have
line.
actually scored with a 3-point
I wonder if that's
line
how it
in
would be
place.
if they
He
added the
never won
4-point
any
line. Like,
NBA
it would be weird for
championships. He
next
was
generation
definitely
to
still a great
imagine it
player.
without the
His play
4-point
started
line.
declining after his first knee injuries, so with the potential
In
he
30
had,
years,
you can
they'll be
only
like,
imagine
damn,
how
I
good
used
he
to play
could
with
have
no
been.
4-point
Number
line,
4,
that's crazy.
Chris Webber. Chris was a first overall pick and played his rookie season for the Golden State Warriors, where he'd averaged 17 points and 9 rebounds a game and won the Rookie of the Year award. Standing at only 6 foot 10 inches, he was a rebounding leader by averaging 13 rebounds a game. And Chris averaged 27 points a game one season and finished 4th in MVP voting. He was a 5-time All-Star and helped the Sacramento Kings to being one of the top teams in the West for a few seasons. In a series against the Lakers, Chris Webber had an insane game of 23 points, 14 rebounds, 7 blocks, 8 assists, and 4 steals. In 2003, Webber was a possible MVP candidate, and the Kings were thought to have a real chance at winning the NBA championship. But in the second round of the playoffs that year, Chris was running down the court, and without being touched, randomly dropped to the ground with a serious knee injury that required surgery and caused him to miss a year of basketball. The surgery affected his speed and his jumping, so he was never the same player. For the next couple of years, he bounced around a few teams and would constantly have problems with that same knee, so in 2008, at 35 years old, Chris Webber retired from the game of basketball. He went from being a possible MVP and NBA champion to a player that could never really recover from a freak injury out of nowhere. It's crazy to think just how good the Kings really were and how good they could have been for years to come if Chris hadn't gotten injured. Number 3.
How did he just randomly get injured, though? That's
Penny
wild.
Hardaway was taken with the 3rd overall pick in the 1993 NBA draft and traded for Chris Webber. He made an immediate impact on the Magic, playing all 82 games and averaged 16 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds a game, and came in 2nd place for the Rookie of the Year award behind Webber. The next season, Penny'd step it up with 20 points and 7 assists a game, make the All-Star game, and help Shaq lead the Magic to the NBA Finals. After Shaq left, Penny would become the leader of the Orlando Magic, and his injuries would begin in the 1996 season. In the season after that, he injured his left knee and only played 19 games for that season. It was an injury that slowed him down for the rest of his career. He'd get traded to the Suns and was forced to have 2 microfracture surgeries on his left knee. He was never the same player. He couldn't get back to the level he used to play at in Orlando, only 8 years into his career. He played 6 more seasons in the NBA, but never averaged more than 10 points a game, and only played 57 games in his last 3 seasons combined. The first half of Penny Hardaway's career looked like it was forming into one that was worthy of the Hall of Fame, but the second half of his career made him look like just an ordinary player. Now we can only wonder if Hardaway could have really made it into the NBA Hall of Fame, and what he really could have done if it wasn't for all those injuries. Number 2, Jay Williams.
Yeah, that's tough.
In Jay Williams' sophomore season, he led Duke to an NCAA championship by averaging 21 points for the season and 25 points a game for the tournament. He averaged 19 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds a game during his college career, and for a large amount of his time in college, he was thought of as the best player in college basketball. He won the Naismith and the Wooden Award in his senior season. And it got better for Jay because he was taken with the 2nd overall pick by the Chicago Bulls in the 2002 NBA draft, only behind Yao Ming. He averaged 9 points and 4 assists a game in his rookie season. And that's where his success ended, because in the 2003 offseason, he was riding a motorcycle, which was against his contract with the Bulls, and he crashed it. He severed a nerve in his leg, fractured his pelvis, and dislocated 3 ligaments in his knee. The Bulls realized he wouldn't be returning to basketball for a long time, so they waived him. And they weren't supposed to pay him any money because he violated his contract by riding that motorcycle, but they gave him $3 million to pay for all of his rehab. 3 whole years later, he tried to return to the Bulls, but unsurprisingly they didn't want him anymore. He bounced around a couple of teams for short amounts of time, but nothing major. So after having the potential to be a great NBA point guard, Jay Williams ruined his career with an off-court injury.
Super tough.
Most good guards that have the potential and the stats that Jay had in college turn out to be great players, so it was a shame to see all of his great talent go to waste. Number 1. Andrew Bynum.
Wow, not Derrick
Andrew
Rose.
Bynum was picked straight out of high school as one of the youngest players to ever play in the NBA. So it took him a few years to make an impact. His only full season was his sophomore season, where he played all 82 games. And his second highest season behind that was 65 games. In 2008, his injuries started when he landed on Lamar Odom's foot and dislocated his kneecap, having his first knee surgery, with a lot more to come. He'd have surgery on that knee and finished the 2008 season, averaging 13 points and 10 rebounds a game. He'd step it up the next season and show flashes of greatness, but Kobe would fall into Andrew Bynum's knee and tear his ACL. Even though he only played 50 games that season, he'd make it back in time to help the Lakers win an NBA championship. In 2010, Bynum was averaging 15 points and 7 rebounds a game, but again he'd injure his knee for the 3rd time in the 2010 playoffs. But he'd hold out on surgery until after the Lakers won their 2nd NBA championship in a row. 2012 was Bynum's last year on the Lakers and the best of his career. He averaged 18 points and 11 rebounds a game, made the All-Star team, and was thought to have been the 2nd best center right behind Dwight Howard. He'd play in Philly and on the Cavs and miss more games because of knee injuries and a bowling accident. From that point on, he'd have a bunch more injuries related to his knee, and he'd have conduct problems until he left the NBA in 2014 at only 27 years old. If you put Bynum's bad attitude to the side, it's crazy to think that Andrew Bynum is still only 30 years old, and without the knee injuries, he would have probably been the best center in the league right now. His career averages were only 11 points and 7 rebounds a game, but at such a young age, he showed flashes of dominance that could have made him one of the best centers to ever play if he didn't have 2 bad knees. And this has been the 10 biggest careers lost to injury.
Alright, that's gonna do it. Not a bad video, Austin. I definitely learned some stuff that I didn't know, so I appreciate that. I would have for sure put Derrick Rose on here. Like I said, Derrick Rose would have been the best. Jay Williams was never going to be the best point guard ever. All right, he didn't win MVP. Derrick Rose literally won MVP his second year. Like 30 points a game. When I think of the point guards that are in the league right now, I'm thinking he could have been better than all of them. Like him in his prime I don't know. So I would have threw D Rose in there. Other than that, I don't have a problem with anything else. You guys can let me know in the comments who you think he forgot. I'll leave a link to Austin's channel. Go check him out. Go tell him that I sent you. He's almost close to 400K, so y'all can help get him there. And yeah, man, that's going to do it. Until next time, it's been your boy. I'm out of here. Y'all take it easy. Everybody have a good day. Everybody stay positive, stay happy, keep grinding, stay motivated, stay healthy. And I will catch y'all tomorrow. Maybe, might not, maybe though.
I don't know what made me think about. My friend said, Mike, you can get some awesome animals. And I'm saying, really? Are you serious?
All right, next on our list is Mark Tyson, who bought 3 tigers.
Some animals. You think that means let's get some animals. Let's get some animals.
They're white. Can we show them some photos? I actually watched that whole Mike Tyson Joe Rogan interview. It was hilarious. But yeah, these tigers, I think they cost, it says $144